Hey, who is that? What is up, Chosen Ones? It's your boy Big Matt with Chosen One Chats. And today, oh my gosh, you guys, Benji does not want to hang out with me. Just tell him to leave me alone now. Anyways, today we're going to talk about how I feel like Canon finessed me out of a lot of money. Now, at first, I feel like I should have listened to somebody when they told me that, quiet, Benji, you're gonna come sit with me, you're gonna do this video with me. I feel like, and yes, I'm talking about the camera company. I should have listened to this content creator that I asked a few questions to. She was verified on Instagram, and ooh, Benji does not want to hang out with the boy. And she had all the nice camera equipment, and then I asked about it, and she said, quite honestly, I don't even use it anymore. She said she just uses her phone, and she said all that's just to look cool, and at the end of the day, don't matter what you use, you just need to put out content. And I still took it into my, well, I didn't do it just for me. If it was just for me, I probably would have stuck with just using my iPhone. But yeah, there was a certain degree of where I was like trying to help somebody else out as well. But I don't want to get into all that. But basically, because one thing about the iPhones is they would run out of storage and stuff, and it'll constantly be a burden to like record projects if they're semi-long, because your iPhone could only hold so much storage, and I didn't want that to get in the way of my ex's she was getting into all that, so I didn't want to have that get in the way of all her stuff. So I got it for both of us. But initially, at the end of the day, I just ended up getting rid of it because, like I said, it's my ex. And not only that, as I tried to give it a fair, amount of time before I completely gave up on it, and use it more and more. And I swear to you guys that it's just like the biggest finesse ever. Like, if you're gonna get into content creating, then just use your iPhone, because these iPhones are doing more than what these cameras are doing. Take it from me, or hopefully you also take it from the person who tried to warn me before I bought all the expensive camera gear. What really pushed me over the edge was just think of all the things that the iPhone does. The iPhone 16 Pro in specific, I was looking into it. It could do 4K, 120 frames per second. It could also do in-body image stabilization, which is insane compared to IBIS. IBIS is wobbly, and most other cameras have pretty bad IBIS as well. It's not even as good as the iPhones. And also, it could have an aperture of like 1.4, like a really low aperture, so you can make a really nice blurred background while recording 4K video. That's insane to me, because in order to get background blur during, like, when you're outside, you would, with a DSLR or mirrorless camera, you would have to get a prime lens or like a really expensive zoom lens, and you would have to not only have a lens switched on for that, and then you would have to take it off to put on, like, if you don't want the background blurred, you would have to put a regular one on. And then not only do you have to put on a different lens to do that, you're also gonna have to put an ND filter on it to block out the light. or else it won't have a blurred background effect during the day. And I had to learn all this the hard way. And at the end of the day, the best camera is the camera that you have on you at all times. And that's your iPhone. And it just so happens that iPhones could actually are also more capable as well. I mentioned that it could do 4K 120 frames per second. That means that you could do some really, really nice 4K slow motion videos. My expensive R8 could only do 4K 60 frames per second. And then if you do 4K 60 frames per second, it's also at higher risk of overheating, which, if you live in a hotter state, it's gonna overheat like crazy if you try to do 4K 60. I never really had a problem with my iPhone when recording 4K anything like overheating. The only time I had a problem overheating with my iPhone is like, say you leave it right directly in the sun, like on the counter or something, or you have it on your dash directly in the sunlight, like getting navigation, like not specifically where I live now, but in Arizona. But yeah, I never really had any issues like while like recording with it though. Other than that, you could. There's a few other big things that the iPhone could do where my Canon it lagged at. But the biggest thing is just like that thing is so big, you can't even like I try to bring it with me everywhere I went, but then now I'm like at a risk of people breaking in my car and taking, because most likely you'll have everything in like one bag, so that bag could carry like all your essentials, and that could be like two different lenses. Like I said, you're probably going to need two different lenses to be able to get your desired look that you want, and you're going to probably have a over like 2,000, maybe even more, in a camera bag. That could easily be a lick for somebody who is car fishing. So definitely, if you do have a big camera, make sure you bring it inside places with you, whether they let you record in there or not. Just say, I'm not leaving this in my car, and they'll probably just tell you just not to film. But don't be leaving that kind of stuff in cars. That's another L. It's just you got to bring all this stuff with you, and it's not anything noticeable of a difference to somebody who is just like looking at it being a normal person. And I there's a lot of gumpy talk on YouTube about how the iPhone sensor is small. The iPhone sensor could never compare to a camera sensor as far as the amount of light that it could capture. And that couldn't be farther from the truth to me. Quite honestly, I'm gonna be completely honest with you guys. When we're talking about an iPhone, yeah, it may have a smaller size sensor, but the megapixels is what really matters. So you literally have 48 megapixels in an iPhone 16 Pro, but you have 24 megapixels in a Canon R8 or a Canon R6 Mark II, and that's just 2 times the amount of megapixels. So you can't really tell me. And the R6 Mark II is like a $4,000 body. I think it's like 3,000, but you get my gist. And then now you got the body, right, and then you want that background blurred effect. So now you gotta buy this. If you want a zoom lens that has the background blur, now you gotta get a $2,000 lens to put on that. That's easily $6,000. And the iPhone has 2 times the megapixels, because the R8 and the R6, they have the same innards, so same sensor. So basically 2 times the megapixels of those expensive cameras than a yeah, the iPhone has 2 times the megapixels than like expensive, big, heavy, large camera, large lens. And you gotta have different lenses, and most likely you're not gonna have that on you when you need to get those good videos. Um, One other thing that really made me upset was the fact that it had lack of multi-face autofocus. What I mean by that is it will only detect one face, and that's going to be your main subject's face. So if you have people who are lower, like kids, and they're standing next to you, they may be slightly out of focus, but your face would be the main focus point. And I called Canon about this, and I heard that the Canon R1, which would be the best in the line, because the higher the number, the less it has in it. So it goes R1, R2, R3, and then the higher the number, the lower the amount of stuff that's in the camera. But the lower the number, the more stuff that it has in the camera. And basically, people are saying that the R1, the one that's supposed to come out, which is the best, should have multi-subject autofocus, like multi-face detection. So it doesn't matter if they're lower on a different plane of view, it will focus on your face because it detects that it's a human face, so it's going to focus on that. They said that the R1 should have it, and our firmware should be updated and have it as well one day. And I called them. I was like, hey, I heard that, you guys are going to be updating the firmware so that we'll have multi-face autofocus once you guys release the R1 or something. And then they basically like, oh, we can't tell you anything about what the R1 has. It's against our policy. And basically, you're just going to have to wait. I'm like, yeah, how about not? It's just a simple, like, are you guys working on fixing that or what? Because I spent a lot of money on this camera. And yeah, I didn't get any intel. I did have a Sony ZV Mark II, and that one did have multi-face autofocus, so it did detect multiple faces. I was a little salty though, because it's, like I said, it's a way smaller camera, and you would think that the bigger camera was more capable, but it wasn't. So shout out Sony for that. But I do gotta say, when everything's all said and done, I really feel like the iPhone 16 Pro is capturing more crisp and sexier photos. The only thing that the ZV Mark II, I don't think the videos were as good as I thought they were gonna be. And then not only that, like I said, we're lagging behind on frames per second in 4K. I think that one only goes up to 4K 30, so only 30 frames per second. So slow motion is really lagging behind there. And correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the R8 only goes up to 4K 60. I don't think it goes any higher, but if it does, it's still not 4K 120 like the iPhone. I'm pretty sure that it is though, because yeah. But and not only that, the only thing that the Sony had on it was, what I really liked was the fluffy thing on top of the microphone would block out all the wind sounds. But you can buy an accessory for the iPhone that slides over the microphone of your phone to block out all the wind sound. So once you get that, now you're basically doing better than the Sony ZV Mark II. So another thing, the DSLR, the big boy cameras and the mirrorless ones, even if it's a digital, it don't matter. The zooming capabilities are absolutely garbage compared to iPhone. And then you got people who say, hey, My the only problem with the iPhone zoom is it's a digital zoom and it drops the quality versus the optical zoom. It doesn't drop the quality. Okay? Your point? Are we just trying to? I think the main focus of a zoom is to just be able to see something, not to have all this crazy quality. I get it. If you zoom in super duper duper far, the quality could drop pretty bad. But I mean, at least you're able to get up on it. Because I had this time where I had this lens on my camera and I'm sitting over here trying to zoom in on this thing and I could only get so close. And I got this big old camera on me. And then my dad with his iPhone pulls up and he gets all the way up on it. And I'm sorry, I don't care if my quality is better. At least he was able to see what we were zooming in on, and I wasn't able to. I was only able to see a little tiny thing. I'm like, this is some real BS, bro. So now you're telling me if I want to zoom in and catch stuff, now I gotta have this big old zoom lens? Like, dude, come on. It's crazy. It's crazy work if you ask me. And quite honestly, the zoom on the iPhone, the quality does not drop that bad to me. I think it actually does a pretty good job. Especially if you're not zooming in super duper 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 far. But the fact that you could zoom in super duper duper far speaks volumes. And you got this flat little thing on, like it's not even thicker than this, bro. And it just slips in your pocket. And you'll never be able to slip a DSLR in your pocket. I even tried slipping the ZV Mark II in my pocket, and yes, it fit, but it didn't feel like it belonged there. The fluffy would get all messed up. Nah, you probably get lint all over it from the lint in your pocket. Nah. So, this is my little rant, you guys. If you guys want to go ahead and, I don't want to take that experience away from you guys. That's not what I'm trying to do, because I got to experience what it's like to have a DSLR. And I wouldn't want to take that from you, because having that camera, it kind of convicts you to use it more versus someone who probably just has an iPhone. They'd probably end up like not really recording videos as much as just like having this specific thing just for videos and photos, where it's like, if you don't, like, you might as well use it. You paid all this money, go get some videos, go get some photos. That's all it does type. Versus, iPhone, you can easily just scroll on TikTok and do all these like internet searches and calling people and doing all these other things that you could do with it, where it's like you could easily fall off. Like, if you're trying to be on top of it and create constant content, you could fall off easier with the iPhone versus a camera, because like when you drop that bag on that camera and it's just staring at you, it makes you want to use it. So I don't want to take that away from you, but if you feel like you could convict yourself to use your iPhone and not get off track, like, keep yourself on it, then just don't even waste your time. Because I was just so surprised when I was able to do on this phone. I can't, because it's an older phone, but I was using someone's iPhone 15 Pro, and I was just totally flabbergasted when I had a background blur video in 4K with during broad daylight, and it just looked so cinematic. And I got off the phone with somebody from Canon, and they're like, well, you said cinematic. There's nothing easy about cinematic. You're going to have to tap into the settings. You're going to have to learn how to use all this. I'm like, I know how to use that. And yeah, and not only do you have to know how to use the settings, you got to get probably even 2 prime lenses and all this stuff. And I'm just like, well, my iPhone 16 Pro does it. Even though I don't have one, I just know that it does that. And he's like, well, then as long as you stay on there with it, then I guess. I'm like, yeah, and I sold all my camera equipment not too long after that conversation with him. Um, and basically, um, one last thing too is let's talk about gimbals. Gimbals. Um, the gimbal on the camera is just so much harder to set up, to get that stable, like, digital electronic stabilization. So um, the iPhone 16 Pro is just so stable. So I really don't even find a need for a gimbal. But if you do want that extra sense of stability, um, and I would never say that about a DSL, like a mirrorless, even with IBIS. The IBIS is hideous. It's horrible. The wobbles are disgusting, especially if you have a wide angle lens. Disgusting. And one thing I could say, I would never say can't like a regular camera is good without IBIS. It. I mean, it's good without a gimbal. Like if you're really trying to get super stable shots, it's actually like not stable whatsoever. Don't matter if you got digital IS on or not, and lens stabilization, nowhere close to iPhone with their stabilization. You could literally get away with just using the iPhone's built-in stabilization without a gimbal, and you probably wouldn't even notice that you don't have a gimbal. You'd probably think they had a gimbal, but I would never say that with a DSLR. But the gimbal, if you did use a gimbal for either or, the gimbal on the DSLR, it's very hard to use, very hard to understand, very hard to set up. Once you get it set up, it's set as long as you don't like close it all out, which is kind of cool. But at the same time, the gimbal for the iPhone, super easy to understand, super easy to set up. It's just like anybody can use it. And then not only that, the really the only difference between, I guess, if you're into photography would be the fact that you can get a more powerful flash for a DSLR than with an iPhone. That's probably going to be your only W, um, but that's about it. Like, you could put that big flash on top of it, bro, and that thing's pretty powerful. So that's the only thing I could say. Yeah, that's about it, guys. If you found this rant any help, I would appreciate if you liked it. If you would share it, if you would at least drop a comment. I, you know, I went through the ringer for you, so you don't have to go through it yourself. But take it from me, take or not. That's just my opinion. If you don't believe that it could do just as good as a professional camera, feel free to look up videos on iPhone 16 Pro versus whatever top camera you could think of. The results are actually kind of jaw-dropping. And then go ahead and check out The Weeknd's new music video, Dancing in the Flames, all shot on an iPhone 16 Pro. It's your boy Big Matt with Chosen One Chats. Have yourselves a wonderful day. Peace.